Okay, you have switched on that? No, that one. You don't need.
It's on already. Mic is on.
Hello. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti. Welcome to the Saturday class on Vedanta and the science of human possibilities. There was a slight confusion in the timing because Bhavans, the class which used to be held at the Bhavans, for the next 2 months it will be held from our Bourne center, the same class. And since it is our time here is 4:30, we are sticking to that 4:30 time for the whole of July and August. Unless, of course, we inform on the website, but the chain timings, chain programs, there are some special programs lined up in August. So anyway, we will continue from where we left. As I told you, the very topic suggests that Vedanta is always about how to explore all the possibilities, human possibilities of an individual, of a personality, of the human personality. Very often we do not explore what human mind, human personality is capable of. There are many subtle layers of our personality which are unknown to most of us unless we study the Upanishads, because Upanishads, which is popularly known as Vedanta, speaks about the inner dimensions of human personality. So it's very important to understand, to exhaust all the possibilities that we can explore and try to live up to them, those ideals. Otherwise, in our life, we will not have any kind of fulfillment. We will do well if we think that we have limited possibilities, we will get limited success. But to explore all the possibilities, we have to go to Vedanta, which is a manual of the science of human possibilities. I call it a science because, like any other science, the truths which are described in the Upanishads and in the Vedanta can be experimented, verified by living them. If one is not just satisfied with the mere academic knowledge of the Upanishads and the Vedanta and tries to practice it in one's own life, then all these possibilities will be explored and we will reach the goal of life, which according to Vedanta is, as we have discussed earlier, it is freedom, total freedom from all kinds of bondage, physical, mental, and spiritual freedom. So ultimately, freedom is the goal of freedom, which is also known as mukti or moksha or nirvana in different systems of thought. They are real goals to be attained. Everybody wants freedom. They want freedom from hunger, freedom from some kind of oppression, oppression, and they want freedom from wants. There are so many desires and wants which a human being thinks have to be fulfilled, and they set up goals for that. So they want to be free from whatever they don't have. So Vedanta speaks of the ultimate freedom where there is absolutely no bondage and we regain our pristine glory of Sat, Cheta and Ananda. So what obstructs us from reaching to that goal? That is how Vedanta proceeds. And our discussion also has come up to the classification of human personality. We first saw the classification of human body according to some Upanishads is threefold. Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and Karana Sharira. We discussed in great detail what is the gross body, the body which is developed as a result of our consuming food, and then the nutrition that we take, and the life forces, which is known as Pranamaya Kosha or the Pranamaya Sharira, Pranamaya Atma, the several names given in the Upanishads to describe the vital body. So so the threefold classification were discussed in great detail. That is according to one Upanishad, the gross body, the subtle body, which includes the mind, buddhi, and other things, and the Anandamaya Kosha, or which is in this threefold classification known as the Karana Sharira. We had a very long discussion on Karana Sharira because that is the most it is less understood. The other two Shariras are easy to perceive. Karana Sharira is hidden from most of us, and as we discussed last time, only prophets who have or avatars who have the capacity to look into the Karana Sharira of a person. It's subtle than the subtle body. It's it's the innermost core of human personality where our samskaras or the impressions, the subtle impressions which determine our personality, which are very often they are unconscious. They are like unconscious memories or unconscious samskaras, which come to the surface only now and then we realize its impact in our lives. So Karana Sharira we studied in great detail, but there is another way of classifying this threefold personality: gross, subtle, and causal. Instead of that, there is another classification based on Taittiriya Upanishad. So in the Taittiriya Upanishad, they have classified it. They have called it a fivefold. It is a fivefold sheath or covering of the self. It is distinct from the pure self or the Atman or our soul or our supreme self, but it has five different subtle levels. So they are the physical sheath, Annamaya Kosha, vital sheath or the Pranamaya Kosha, the mental sheath, the Manomaya Kosha, the intelligent or the sheath which the seat which is the seat of our buddhi or true wisdom, that is known as Vijnanamaya Kosha, Vijnana and Vijnana. Jnana is ordinary knowledge. Vijnana means specific knowledge, that discriminatory power or that discerning power which helps us to make the right choices at the right time. So that is known as Buddhi or Vijnanamaya Kosha. And the last is the Anandamaya Kosha, which we correlated with the causal body or the Karana Sharira of the previous discussion. So these one should not be under the impressions, because the idea that these are five sheets imply like banana sheets is one covering, you peel off one covering and you get the inner coat, then you remove one more covering. So it's not like the sheets as in a banana plant or a banana. It is something which permeates. They are successively finer and finer, and the it is filled, the subtle one permeates the grosser one next to it. And in fact, the innermost core, the Anandamaya Kosha, permeates all the other four. And the third one permeates the outer core. So the succeeding one, or we can say that the preceding sheath is filled. That is a nice word which I'll discuss now. It permeates the succeeding one. Say, for example, Annamaya Kosha is without Pranamaya Kosha, you cannot imagine a body active without the life forces, Prana, Apana, Samana, Vyana, Udana. We have discussed that. And they are responsible for the motion of our body, for all our activity. So the Pranamaya Kosha precedes the Annamaya Kosha and it permeates it. So without it, the Annamaya Kosha will not function properly. So we have in the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is a description from in the second chapter and the second section where they use a word. It is known as tilde. Tilde means like cultivated. So the physical sheath is tilled by the vital sheath. That means the Annamaya Kosha No matter how healthy your body is, any imbalance in the pranamaya kosha, the second subtle layer, the pranamaya kosha, that will have some impact. So we call them psychosomatic diseases, because the manomaya kosha also has impact on the pranamaya kosha. So each one is tilled by the preceding one, preceding in the sense the more subtle one. So Annamaya kosha is impacted to a large extent by the Pranamaya kosha, but indirectly it is also impacted by the Manomaya kosha, because our thoughts, our mental state very often makes changes in the prana, the imbalance of the prana, and that again makes changes in the Annamaya kosha. So you can't say that each one acts independently of the other three or four. They act, each one is impacted, tilled. That is why the word tilled is used, as you till the soil. And it is tilled by the vital sheath, the physical sheath. That is the exact translation I'm reading out. Taittiriya Upanishad. The physical sheath, that is Annamaya Kosha. Mind you, in the Upanishad, they don't say kosha. Kosha is a word used in Panchadashi and other Vedantic scriptures, primers. Because where there is so much of confusion, the Upanishadic language is so archaic. They will say Annamaya Atma. Now people will get confused. Atma normally is translated as the soul. So what do you mean by Annamaya? So that's why the word kosha is used for easier understanding. But it is not just a sheath. It is a aspect of our personality which is grossest. Annamaya kosha. We have a physical body. So it is tilled by the vital sheath. That means it is cultivated, it is influenced, it is run, it is totally controlled by the pranamaya kosha, tilled by the vital sheath. Then it says the vital sheath is in turn tilled by the mental sheath. So it is the subtle nervous energy. If you see, we have prana, samana, vyana, udana, and apana. So these are different five pranas. You see, Vyana is a prana which can be translated roughly as the nervous energy. Now, nervous energy, though it's a physical system, our entire nervous system is a physical system. It is made of spinal cords and the brain and so many nerve endings and all. So signals are given, but who gives them the signal? So it is the Manomaya Kosha which impacts first the Vyana, and of course, through Vyana, all the different organs, they just follow. So, tilling means that. So, when you have thoughts, of course, many thoughts have become autonomous, like you don't think. You don't think and beat, the heart doesn't beat because you think in a particular way. It may change the way it beats if there is fear and if there is some kind of psychological disturbance, mental disturbance. It may impact, but most of the actions of this Vyana Vayu, the nervous energy that is flowing through our body, and Pranamaya Kosha, the Annamaya Kosha and Pranamaya Kosha, they are, many of the things have become autonomous. Autonomous in the sense it is uh, the autonomous nervous system, which is the spinal cord. There is action and there is reaction. You don't think. No person will is consciously controlling the prana or his breathing. Though breathing can be consciously controlled, but very often it is autonomous. We just don't breathe. It's only when you do pranayama, when you try to gain control of the pranavayu, then you say you control your breath. But most of the time, the breath is controlled. It's already run by some subtle force. So also our digestion. So we don't think that we should digest this food. We don't think and consciously make our heart beat. It appears to beat automatically. So the yogis say, because most of the things are controlled by this pranamaya kosha, pranamaya sharira is, as it were, independently acting on our annamaya kosha. And our mind has a very small role to play, because over a period of time, many of our actions, all the five pranas give rise to different actions. Our digestion, our blood circulation, assimilation of food, the nervous currents that give us various inputs from the outside world, making all our indriyas work, the eye sense organs work. All this is done by the vyana, the subtle nervous energy, but most of it has become automatic or autonomous. That is why Swamiji says the great task in Raj Yoga, in Patanjali's yoga, is to make all these autonomous actions to bring them under your control. It looks very strange, but it's such a difficult task. How can you control your digestion? How can you control your heartbeat? How can you control the other five pranas? It appears to be impossible, except pranayama, the pranavayu, which can be controlled. You decide, okay, for 1 hour now I will decide how I will breathe. But that is not just pranayama, means so many other things. It is not just control of breath. Breath is the outermost expression of prana. It has many other ramifications, many other controls which need to be done. So just controlling the breath, people think they'll get good health. They may improve their health a little bit, but controlling prana fully or controlling any other prana, the prana, samana, vyana, udana, these are very subtle vital forces, pranas, which need absolute control. And the secret is given here in the Taittiriya Upanishad that since each kosha is stilled by the previous one or controlled by the previous one, the intelligent sheath, the Vijnanamay kosha, controls the Manomay kosha. That's why Buddha and all, most of them, they just skip the first steps. They say if you control the mind by your buddhi, even in the Gita it is there, buddhi yoga. I give to a person who is dear to me, I give him buddhi yoga. What does it mean? I give him the capacity to use the buddhi to control the mind, which in turn will control the prana, which will control our actions, our karma, everything will be controlled by the buddhi. Buddhi is still more subtle, and that's why it has more power. So that is why, if we literally translate this, the physical sheath, Annamaya Kosha, is tilled by the vital sheath by the mental sheath by the intelligent or the Vijnanamaya Kosha, and the intelligent sheath by the blissful sheath. So, how Anandamaya Kosha comes into the picture? We discussed, last lecture was entirely dedicated to that, so I'll not repeat. There we discussed what is our Karana Sharira, causal body. And I explained, giving so many examples, how Sri Ramakrishna could understand, or we can see the impact of the Annamaya Kosha, or see the effect of the Annamaya Kosha on the Annamaya Kosha, and to a little extent Pranamaya Kosha. And if some people have the capacity to read others' mind, some yogis do have that, they can go up to the Manomaya Kosha. So it's almost impossible to change somebody's wisdom. I mean, you can train a person, make him skilled, that is, make his Manomaya Kosha by repeated practice. You can train him to any skill, AI skills, and so many subjects have been mastered by human mind. They are just Manomaya Kosha. They have not even touched the Vijnanamaya Kosha. No amount of education or no amount of training will give wisdom. Wisdom is something which you cannot buy. Training and academic knowledge you can buy, go to the best schools, but who will teach wisdom? Wisdom has to be taught by the awakening of the buddhi, which is to be done by oneself. So that is why it is called intelligent sheath. But even that can be cultivated and developed. But the Anandamaya Kosha or the Karana Sharira, it is only incarnations. Swami Vivekananda said that. I have seen Sri Ramakrishna just look at a person, not only judge what are the contents of his Karana Sharira, or the innermost core. He could read not only the mind, but even the capacity, his future tendencies, future samskaras, which are not known to anyone. Even Vivekananda, when he saw him, he said, you are far greater than Keshav Chandra Sen. If Keshav Chandra Sen has one power, you have 18 such powers. And Vivekananda Naren first thought, this man is mad. Keshav Chandra Sen is such a great leader, founder of such a big movement. and I'm just a college student. And he was telling this, looking at the Karana Sharira. He knew what are the possibilities hidden in Naren's Karana Sharira. That capacity only avatars and great prophets have. So they can change the destiny. That is why I said the only person, even Vivekananda said, by my master's grace, I have the power to read your mind if you allow me. So I can guide you properly by understanding your mind in greater depth. But to change the destiny, I have seen my master. He said that is his greatest miracle. People think it is a great miracle if they can materialize some things. He says these powers are the most uh, flimsiest and the simplest powers a yogi can get. He said Patanjali's yoga, they have described these miraculous powers. They are absolutely gross. And he said the greatest miracle of Sri Ramakrishna is how he could change people's Karana Sharira, change people's tendencies, convert Girish Ghosh to a saint. That is not possible, no matter how much yoga one has done, or such even great yogis, for example, they cannot change the contents of the Karana Sharira because those impressions are impressions which we have gathered over several lives, and most of them are not known to us. That is unfortunate because that is the innermost sheath, Anandamay Kosha, though it is its nature now and then we can feel when we enter into deep sleep, but it is due to ignorance. It is covered with ignorance. We know it, we know we are something great. We get a glimpse of a very, very, very faint glimpse of our real blissful nature when we are in deep sleep, when we are not conscious of the world, which is again a rare thing for most of us. Most of the time we are in dream state or in a waking state. Hardly we go into this deep sleep. But even in the deep sleep, the Upanishad says, you just get a glimpse of what your real state, real nature is. The Satchidananda, the Anandamay Kosha, which is spoken of here, is the blissful sheath. So that controls our destiny. That makes us do spiritual practices. If that was not there, why will we are happy the way we are. Most of the people say that we don't need spirituality because the gross world is giving us enough happiness. It's only when the blows come, when we realize that this happiness is not permanent, then we look for something more fundamental, more lasting, some kind of eternal happiness which we seek. And that comes only when we explore the Anandamay Kosha. So they are covers, they are like coverings of the human personality, the soul of human being. But these five sheets, according to the Taittiriya Upanishad, they do not exhaust the human possibility or human personality. Because what happens is when we reach succeeding levels of, we touch these succeeding levels, the higher and higher levels of our personality, we touch each kosha as a result of our spiritual practice or spiritual training, you become less and less gross. So when Jesus said that the kingdom that he was speaking of, unfortunately the Jews and the Romans did not understand it. They asked him, are you an emperor? And he said, yes. Emperor of what? He did not mean the physical. That was nothing to him. He said what he meant was, I am the emperor of the spirit. The real emperor is one who controls his own, who understands his own self. So that is what is meant here. When the Annamaya Kosha, the Pranamaya Kosha controls the Annamaya Kosha, the Manomaya Kosha in turn controls both the grosser sheets, grosser aspects of our personality, and the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the highly developed faculty of buddhi, which again I never forget to repeat this again and again, because Gayatri Mantra is the one of the fundamental spiritual practices in our Vedas. The whole Vedas can be compressed into this Gayatri. Gayatri or any other mantra, the whole Mantra Shastra depends on the awakening of this buddhi or the uh, Vijnanamay kosha. Even if we reach that state, then our spiritual life actually begins. So others are all prior preparations. They're preparatory disciplines, asana. We make such a big fuss about yogasana and all, but they are necessary, no doubt, to have a stable body. Asana, in fact, means uh, sthiram sukham, that which makes you steady and that which makes you comfortable. That is all what asana is about. Apart from its fundamental benefits that we get in the in the spiritual, in the physical body, whatever benefits we get, that is that apart. If we want the asana to fundamentally change our personality, then sthirata and ease, we should be able to maintain a steady posture so that we can meditate. The purpose is lost if you just focus on the physical exercises. The very idea of exercise is to have a sound body, no doubt, but also, and also the regulate the pranamaya sharira, which can be done through pranayama and asanas to a certain extent, and yama and niyama before that, which we cannot ignore. We start with yama and niyama, the moral disciplines, the discipline that we practice. They have a definitely they have a utility. But finally, then we come to the fifth step, which is pratyahara dharana, and then we discuss that in our Rajoga class. So when we come to that level, when the awakening of the buddhi takes place, either through the prayer Gayatri mantra, which says Dhiyo yona prachodayata. Dhi means buddhi. So it's a constant prayer a child or a spiritual aspirant utters or repeats. Repetition is the key here. He repeats it, trying to convince his own personality and the divine spirit within that I am trying to identify myself more and more with the Vijnanamaya kosha. Irrespective of what happens to the Pranamaya kosha, the Annamaya kosha, and the Manomaya kosha, irrespective of our mental states, which are always fluctuating. The very nature of the mind is to fluctuate, to be depressed, to be happy at one, it oscillates. So just to give it a steadiness, yoga says you have to repeat the Gayatri, and somehow, as a first step towards real spirituality, you have to touch this Vijnanamaya kosha. When the buddhi shines, the light of buddhi shines, that is, the light of divine wisdom shines, then you know how to make right choices at the right time, which are very important for the other three koshas to even function properly. So, all the habits, all the disciplines, the spiritual first four steps of the Ashtanga Yoga are meant to control the body or control the prana and control the mind with the help of a higher kosha, which is the intelligent sheath or the Vijnanamaya kosha. So, the goal of spiritual life, I repeat again, is to somehow uh, touch this Vijnanamaya kosha. So all our sadhana, whether you do mantra upasana or prayer, in most of the Christian and other traditions, they don't have this idea of mantra shastra. They have this prayer. Prayer almost has the same effect. Even in fact, Gayatri mantra, though we say it is a mantra, it is a prayer. It's a prayer to the divine within to illumine our buddhi so that we use the other three koshas properly, make the right choices so that we don't suffer later on. Right choices at the right time. So that discerning capacity, that viveka, what to do and what not to do. In fact, our whole life is viveka. Every time we take a decision, either we do it or don't do it. Life gives us choices. But very often, it's a bundle of wrong choices that results in what we are today. But then we realize, oh, if we had made the right choice at the right time. But who decides? It is this dhi. So that is why the awakening of the buddhi, the training to awaken the buddhi began at the age of 6. And that is why Upanayana and everything was given to a child. That is how the Hindu Shastras decided that after 6, I mean, 6 is after that it will be more and more difficult. If So they expected, along with his mental skills, to develop the Vijnanamay Kosha while he is at school, he or she, both boys and girls were eligible to receive that. And any sadhana which is similar to the repetition of the Gayatri mantra. Then there were so many traditions which condensed further the prayer Gayatri mantra into smaller mantras. But the essence of all the mantras is the same. Begin your spiritual life by touching this Vijnanamay Kosha, at that level you can say that you have started to explore all your higher possibilities, human possibilities. So Vedanta comes into, of course, Vedanta deals with the Annamay Kosha, it deals with the Pranamay Kosha. That is why we have in Patanjali system also Yama, Niyama, so much of discipline, the Yama and Niyama, internal and external discipline. It will take a lifetime to master those Yama and Niyama. Forget asana and pranayama. So you imagine half of our effort in Patanjali's yoga, even before you sit for meditation, when you try to awaken your buddhi, they say you have these preparatory disciplines. At least you should have a little mastery over little self control. All these things, if they are there, then it makes control of the mind easy by using the power of buddhi to control our mind. But that is why they say the sheaths are like coverings of the luminous self, but it says the physical sheath is stilled or controlled by the pranamaya kosha. The pranamaya kosha is controlled by the manomaya kosha. Manomaya kosha is in turn controlled by the vijnanamaya kosha. And then the anandamaya kosha, which is our baggage of all the past karma, which are in hidden. They are impressions. They are subtle impressions, samskaras, vasanas, which we have inherited, not because of being born into a particular family, but because we have inherited as a result of all our past lives, all our karmas. So our actions now will determine what our vasanas are, what our karana sharira will be like, or what our anandamaya kosha will be like. We can't choose. We have very little choice. We may have a choice to train our mind. We may have little less choice, and it is far more difficult to train our buddhi. But it's almost impossible to change our samskaras. That requires persistent practice. That is why in yoga, Patanjali very clearly says it has to be practiced. He anticipated that how long should I practice yoga, or when will I reach dhyana, the level of dhyana. Before that, there are pratyahara and dharana, which are lower levels of concentration. So he says, over a period of time, if you persist on this journey, then there is a possibility that at some stage of your life, you will reach the state of meditation or dhyana. But then you have to pass through the earlier stages. Seventh, you remember the seventh step, which is just next, just one step below samadhi is dhyana. So meditation is something which is a skill, a possibility that can be explored or it can be used, developed when you develop the human personality, when you have gone through the training. That's why they say this the witness self, which is again nothing to do with the sheets. It's quite independent. Because it percolates through the Anandamaya Kosha, we get joy. In deep sleep, the joy that we get, a small fraction of a glimpse of that infinite joy, which is infinitesimally small. That joy is the result of the uh, bliss of Brahman or Satchidananda, according to Vedanta, but it is superimposed, totally covered with avidya or ignorance. That is why, though we know that we were very happy when we were in a state slightly similar to that of samadhi in deep sleep, where we all our worries, all our shariras, temporarily they were suspended and we enjoyed. That's why we always say we slept soundly. We had a nice deep sleep, not sleep with dream. That is not sleep. That is just an extension of the waking state. It makes us more restless, in fact, nightmares, dreams, and all. Here it is the sushupti or the deep sleep is given as a reference. because they say uh, the reflection of the joy of Brahman or joy of Atman is slightly a hint of that you experience in deep sleep, but because it is heavily covered by our ajnana, avidya, we cannot realize that, because when we wake up, we go back to that same uh, difficult world which we faced before we went into deep sleep. Somehow, sleep made us forget that. Even the dream continued to trouble us, depending on how your waking state and how our samskaras are. Internally and externally, this dream state is constantly changing, and it refuses to give us peace even if we go to sleep. It is only when, by the grace of God, or by our own good samskaras, we get deep sleep. You enjoy that little amount of bliss which temporarily keeps you alive, because you know there is a higher state, that of Satchidananda, which you are ultimately, Vedanta says, you have to attain, so that all your miseries will be removed forever. So, the unchanging basis of this ever changing reality is distinct from all these five koshas. Let us not make a mistake that no matter which kosha we reach, the pure self which we are trying to reach, the Atman, which is the goal of life, it is its nature is constant witness, Sat, or Chit, the pure consciousness. But it is totally distinct from these five koshas. Koshas are like, it is like a lamp. Sri Ramakrishna is to give an example. The light inside a room reflects through the glass more. It does not come out through the wall. Suppose there is a bright light. Only through the transparent glass you can see the light outside, and you think that is light. But the real light is within. It has nothing to do. The glass just reflects it. It allows some of the light to pass through, and that is why we feel that this Anandamaya Kosha is such a wonderful thing. But actually, it is just a reflection. And then the reflection becomes more and more dull, and the light becomes more and more dull as we go to the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the Annamaya, and finally, when it comes to the Annamaya Kosha, we have become very gross. And that to stay in that state for a long time is like to stay in a state of an animal, because animals live in the first two koshas. Their pranamaya kosha is highly active, perhaps more active than us, because they are more healthier than us. They can sustain their endurance and all. Prana, some animals have better prana than us and better bodies also than us, but then they can't rise. Their manomaya kosha is also rudimentary, but Vijnanamaya is almost impossible unless one has to be born as a human being. That is why Vivek Chodamani, which tells us that this Viveka is only possible for a human being. So that is why human birth is so rare. And that is why we should make the maximum out of this. Now, Shankara says, again we come to the Vivek Chudamani, explaining this phenomena. You see what Shankaracharya and other Prakarana Granthas, which were written by others like Panchadashi, these are texts which are basic to understand the Upanishads. It's very difficult to understand the Upanishads directly. So people go through this, but there is another view that these Prakarana Granthas were not written by Shankaracharya and others. They have attributed, some Shankara must have written. But it's always better to go to the original Upanishads. Swami Vivekananda used to say, the message gets diluted when you go to lower and lower texts. Because to understand the bhashyas written by Shankara on the Upanishads, which are difficult to understand, again, there is this prakarana, means the texts which help you to understand Vedanta. So you go further, you dilute it further. But anyway, they give a good idea. It's good for beginners like us to understand what these sheets are, because they don't tell anything which is contradictory to the Upanishads, but they explain it in a simpler way. So, Shankaracharya says in his 125th verse that there is some self-existing entity. See, till you realize it is a theory for all of us. It's absolutely theory. A whole life, if we listen to Advaita Vedanta, we will not even get an idea of what this Satchidananda is. Let us make it very clear. That is why those who follow the path of bhakti, they are less, uh, they are more truthful when they say, see, I don't know, I depend on the God to save me, to help me out of this trouble. At least they are very honest. But if we think that we, by understanding intellectually, which is the lowest level of, you may say, the practice of understanding and benefiting from the Advaita philosophy, is an intellectual understanding. So that is why here the pointers are always given by Shankaracharya and these great people who wrote the Prakarana Grantha. They just point out, they just show you the map. They will not take you to Rome, they'll show you the way to Rome. That is the difference between understanding Advaita and practicing Advaita. Advaita is an experience, is a totally different thing. It is very, very difficult. So, because you see that the discussion that entails, you forget Vivek Chudamani, if you take even a simple primer on Vedanta, you will find so many conditions. We just want to skip and go to the highest. And we understand the highest truth intellectually and think that, oh, we have been studying this Upanishad, this Bhashya, and we think we have mastered that. But unfortunately, we are at the kindergarten of our quest. That is why these Prakarana Granthas were written by Shankaracharya and others. Vidyaranya wrote the Panchadashi. There are so many nice texts which, when beginners, they feel, oh, we can make some sense out of what this Vedanta is. And then when it comes to real practice, then we have to go to the higher Upanishad themselves. That is why when Vivekananda was asked about his opinion of different schools of thought, he said, go back to the Upanishads, go to the original source. It's like trying to understand Jesus and the Bible by reading the theologians who deliver so many sermons, and then you really don't know, you miss the truth, which you can find in the simple parables of Christ, Buddha, Ramakrishna. If you go to Ramakrishna's Gospel, for example, most of the most subtlest truths can be understood in a very, very simple way. Even Vivekananda was confused once. He said, how could Sri Ramakrishna, how did he develop this capacity to make a difficult thing simple? Whereas all our scholars have done quite the opposite. He says, Swami Vivekananda says, the truths of the Upanishads are the simplest things in the universe, as simple as your own existence. But unfortunately, our minds are complicated, so we complicate those simple things in the name of, you may say, maturity and to satisfy our higher so-called intellectual capacity, which amounts to nothing actually. According to that is why Swami Vivekananda very clearly said, in this avatara, Sri Ramakrishna deliberately ignored or just ignored formal learning. He was also wondering why in this incarnation, and he speaks such wonderful wisdom. He says the only reason he discarded, so Swamiji uses this word in Sri Ramakrishna and Hinduism. He said when he found that Hinduism was divided into hopelessly varying sects quarreling with each other, so much of strife. You have to go to that era where Hinduism were practically at loggerheads. The Shaktas would fight the Shaivites and the Vaishnavas, and then don't touch this, to eat this, don't eat this. And there was no agreement. And he says the whole land of Bharata was turned into a inferno, veritable inferno. And that is why the outsiders came, and then so many new systems of thought came and they occupied us, and people got still more confused. So he says at that time, in that juncture of Indian history, he says Sri Ramakrishna appeared to tell these hopelessly quarreling sects where the true spiritual unity of Hinduism or of the Sanatana Dharma was to be found. So he deliberately says, just to avoid this intellectual polemics, as they said, so much of people were killed after these debates. You see, even during Shankaracharya, if you lost, you had to sacrifice your life or give up your profession. So there was these debates and then quarrels and my God, whether my God or my system is better, whether Vishishta Advaita is good or Advaita. So Sri Ramakrishna saw and this, what are they doing? What are they quarreling for? None of them have understood this truth. The truth of the pudding is in eating it, not in how to prepare it and decorating it. That will not give you the proof of the how delicious the pudding is. So here, when we have to keep this in mind, he says he discarded formal learning to show how in the minds, I'm using his words only, in Swami Vivekananda's words, he says he deliberately discarded formal learning so that he can show how the eternal knowledge of the Upanishads, of the Vedas, are spontaneously revealed in the purified minds of sadhakas. You see, the only condition is purity, the purified mind, and these truths are spontaneously revealed. The Upanishads, people used to just go to the forests, they used to just meditate, and some great truth would be realized. That is how it was being taught. They didn't go to formal universities, but the spiritual truth is something which is totally distinct from the academic understanding of Vedanta. So here he says, Shankaracharya admits there is some self-existing identity. Why does he say some? He does not give any description because unless you realize it, unless one realizes it, it is just an idea. We can go on telling for 24 hours but not realize that we are the Atman. So he says there is some self-existing entity which I don't know. He is honest. I mean, he is speaking on behalf of us. He says there is some self-existing entity which is the perpetual substratum of the ego. What we see, what we identify ourselves is our own ego consciousness, the witness of the three states, waking, dream, and dreamless sleep, which we discussed in the previous class, and is also distinct from these five sheets. So he makes it clear that I am discussing all these things, but true reality is beyond that, and that is what you have to experience. So, what is spontaneously revealed in the mind, the purified mind of the rishis, of the Upanishads, Sri Ramakrishna came to demonstrate. These are Vivekananda's words. And he showed that going to any class or attending any, having any formal learning has no bearing on the realization. He could realize the truth. He realized it and spoke from what he experienced himself. From that, the whole gospel of Sri Ramakrishna has come. It is not just something which he has heard from somebody. It's not as Swami Vivekananda in some other places. My knowledge was second-hand knowledge because I got it from books. My master's knowledge was original, fresh, just like the Upanishadic rishis. He realized something and then spoke to us. He didn't quote this fellow, that fellow, and ours is just remembering what others have said and reproducing it. And we think we are university graduates. He said we felt so small in front of him. We were all graduates. In those days, to become a graduate of Calcutta University, where education was not so easily available, it was a blow. Even Master Mashe, when he goes, he thought this great man must be reading many books. But when he found that he doesn't even know how to read and write properly, he was shocked. Then what can I learn from this person? But slowly his ego was removed. His ego, that ego consciousness, has to be removed. So Vidyaranya, who is also a great one of the scholars of this Shankara tradition, he says, when these five sheets, you see, now he is coming to a stage where you have to transcend these five sheets. When these five sheets, Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and Anandamaya Kosha, are disowned, the body, after knowing what it is, you have to disown it. So that is why in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which we were discussing, Arjuna asked Sri Krishna, he said, I like the way of the formless God, this Advaita and all. You have spoken to me that in the first chapters. He tells him the greatness of the Atman. And then he again says, now you are asking me to pray and follow the path of bhakti. So which one is better according to you? So in the Bhakti Yoga, he very clearly says, if you have it is very difficult to worship the avyakta, the formless aspect, if you have body consciousness. So here Vidyaranya says, when the five sheets are disowned, I mean, in a path of jnana, every time the body says, I, your ego conscious says, I, you have to just disown it. Disowning not only physically, mentally. See, Buddha, for example, whenever he went for Bhiksha, Ananda was his disciple, and they used to walk, and in some houses, the door was rudely shut. They used to say, you are such a young man, why don't you earn some money instead of begging? So much of insults. But Buddha was unperturbed. That means he disowned his ego consciousness. So this word is so important. He says it is disowning. Vidyaranya says, uh, parityage, panchakosha parityage, not just tyaga. Tyaga is simple renunciation. Here he speaks of the supreme renunciation where five koshas are like objects, like flimsy objects. You imagine, how can we even start our sadhana if we consider the body, the mind, our ego, which we hold to be. Maybe we don't care for our body. Maybe we don't even care for pranamaya sharira. But definitely if somebody hurts our ego, we feel bad. But here he says, when at that stage, when you disown, as if they are foreigners, they are not ours. When you disown, the five koshas are like flimsy objects that are to be given up. So this is such a difficult task. As because they are the witness consciousness is all that remains. Whatever remains is the witness consciousness, that is the Brahman. So that cannot be explained. That has to be realized. No amount of discussion will help that. That is the real nature of the self. Its non-existence cannot be proved. So he says existence, of course, right now at this stage when we are both of course, Sri Ramakrishna can say, he can prove, I can prove the existence of God. He could say because he had seen it. But for us, Vidyaranya's approach is good. He says, see, I can't prove you the existence of the Supreme Self, the real nature of the Self, because for that you have to disown the Panchakoshas, which you have not done. I can show you the map to that, but I can tell you one thing, you cannot prove the non-existence of the self. Like it is, there's nothing left. You know, some of the absolute materialists, they'll just say, what is there to, why should we waste our time thinking about the soul, Atma and all? When the body goes, it just merges into Prakriti, or they don't say Prakriti, the fundamental elements, it goes back, that they all decompose. And it's the end. We are over. I mean, our chapter is closed. If it were so easy, then people would not be afraid of death. If one has 100% belief that with the death of the body, this self also vanishes. That is why Vidyaranya says, at the same time, just because you have not experienced it, its non-existence also cannot be proved. So you be careful. You just don't become a Nastik and say that I have heard many of our doctors and all who are so obsessed with the medical skills that they have said, what is there? We'll try the best. And when the body dies, it's over. What is there? Just forget. But if we were able to forget, then it would have been easy. But the subtle body will not give us up. It will struggle. It will have to take another body. That is why this karma and rebirth, at least three major religions, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Jainism, and also many other religions, they believe in this because you can't escape. Otherwise, death would have been the end of all. Then you live whichever way you wanted. and one day anyway you will die. So why not cheat? The Charvakas tried that philosophy, that if anyway you are going to die, then take a loan and die, because anyway you don't have to repay it. That is the literally they used to say, ki even borrow money and eat ghee and nice sweets, and then one day anyway when you die, every bhasmi bhutasya, all your ashes will become one with the mother earth and everything will end. So just make fun and enjoy. That philosophy was there in India also. Unfortunately, now atheism and all these things, they say they believe, but when they are in the hospital, they will definitely not say that. They are afraid of life after death. Though everybody denies, still he is on his deathbed. Then he will start asking, "Oh, is it because that is why he says its non-existence cannot be proved?" So Vidyaranya is warning us. Now you may say, "Well, because your body is healthy, you think you'll live life and a long life." But when you face this terrible prospect of death, when you are very close to it, then from somewhere this doubt comes. Am I sure that everything will be finished when I die? Then it would be very nice, because whatever I have done, I have enjoyed, and now a little suffering and I die. If the way out is not so easy. That is why Vidyaranya says you cannot prove its non-existence. So be careful. It will haunt you. The same ego, the same subtle body will catch another physical body. It's a matter of time. And we'll discuss that. This physical and the vital sheaths, what are the relation? The vital, that is pranamaya kosha. The pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, what are the relations? What is the relation according to the Upanishad? So we will subsequently will find out, because this is a very interesting study where the interactions of, though they are to be given up, but since we cannot do it, we so much love these five koshas of ours, because our existence depends on this, on our body and our mind. So these Prakarana Granthas are very practical. He says, first know how to handle this, then you can give it up. So, but in the beginning he says, when you give up, maybe that stage may not come in this life. Maybe I have to do sadhana for many births when I finally reach that realization. But still, he says you cannot disprove. So don't think that this existence apart from these koshas is not there. It is there, and that will continue to haunt you. All that will go is the Annamaya Sharira and the prana. Almost all the pranas, except we'll see now in the next class, how one prana acts as a vehicle to take the subtle body to another migration, to another body. All the pranas go, because we don't need the prana to breathe, because our lungs are gone. Our Annamaya kosha is gone. So the prana which is responsible for the pumping of the lungs, the beating of the heart, we don't need it. So that prana merges into the universal prana. But some prana remains. That's not going to leave us. That will be the vehicle, they say. It's given, beautiful description is there. So it becomes the vehicle to carry our subtle samskaras, all the karma that we have done. There's no escape. We have to take another body to work it out. So that's why, otherwise suicide would have been a very nice way to avoid all the troubles. No, it will haunt us. It'll go. You will go with that prana. That little prana will take away all the ego consciousness, the mental sheath, and the vijnanamaya kosha, and it will keep on searching for another body which will help out. And nature is kind enough to provide it with another body, where again he has to start. Of course, unfortunately, he cannot graduate. Again, he has to go to the kindergarten and go to school, and then finish, then become aware. And if he is lucky, that's why in Gita says, Arjuna was confused. He says, if I die while I'm doing sadhana, then what is the guarantee what will happen? He said, don't worry, whatever you have done will be saved. Maybe you put that hard disk in another computer, it will start. So whatever karma we have done, nothing is lost. Swalpam api asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. In Gita it is there. And he says, yoginam shrimatam gehe. You will either be born in a family of yogis because of your good karma. Don't worry that uh, your whole life you have done good karma and suddenly death seizes you. Then what will happen? Naturally, it's a worry. Arjuna will say everything will be wasted. He said, not maybe your property and the wealth and other things will be wasted. Of course, you can't take it. But the good karma, what he means is the Vijnanamay Kosha, the development of the Manomay Kosha, and also the Anandamay Kosha, which is the seat of our samskaras, they are carried over. So the good karma that you have done and the samskaras will be carried over to the next birth, and from there you begin a new life, either in the family of yogis. So he says, don't worry, nothing will happen. Even if you die while you are practicing yoga, whatever you have done, it is like you carry over from. So that we'll discuss in the next very interesting uh, chapter, which is the connection between physical and vital sheaths. Of course, this is not the only sheaths which are connected to each other. The relation, how one impacts the other. Then we will have the Pranamaya Kosha and the Manomaya Kosha, how they are interacting with each other. From the scriptures, I mean, it is not just somebody's idle fancy. These are all Shankaracharya's, how Karmendriya and Gyanendriya interact, how the. Yes. Yes. Now we are finished. Yeah.
I have a couple of questions.
Hmm.
In the 12th chapter, Bhakti influenced the Vijnanamaya Kosha.
Hmm.
Through love of God, you change something in the Vijnanamaya Kosha.
Yeah.
And then in the 18th chapter, there is total surrender.
Hmm.
What happens in total surrender? God changes the Vijnanamaya
Or
Kosha.
the thing is, total surrender means what was described here when Advaitin says you have to discard all the five koshas. Since you cannot do it, you tell all the five koshas are now.
You disown.
You disown and ask God to own it. Huh? God owns it, so I have no problem now. But to voluntarily, that's why Advaita, what happens is you don't accept God, you don't accept Avtara, you don't accept anything. So what you have to do is use your willpower to say that even if a thorn pricks, you have to say, I have no pain. If you say, my body is paining, then Advaita will say, oh, you are then not believing in the Atman. Difference is the path is easier. Yeah, for a disembodied being, a person who has, in the 12th chapter, Krishna says, for a person who has no attachment to the body, Deha Vadbhir, I mean, one who is identified with the body, for him the path of Jnana is difficult. He doesn't say impossible, it's difficult. Hard, because now at least we have to be honest and tell God that I am attached to my body, I am attached to my mind, I am attached to my ego. So when you surrender, what actually happens is he takes the charge of your five koshas. Instead of discarding it,
That's different.
yeah,
Different than
it is different path. No, it's different only as a path. But as a goal, it will lead you to the same. It will lead to the same goal.
Then what is then bhakti?
Bhakti means devotion. No. See, bhakti can be devotion to the Satchidananda Brahman is also bhakti. But if you give it a form, then it is a love trying to have a personal relationship with God in whichever form you like. God the Father, God the Mother, God the Child, Yashoda.
It's a way to attain.
It's a way. Definitely, it's not the Parabhakti. It is a bhakti with which you use the human emotion that you have
To attain.
and just change the direction. Thakur used to say, there's nothing wrong in your anger, there's nothing wrong in your trying to love your child. But think that child is the Lord himself. So then it becomes Vatsalya Bhava. That is, Yashoda thought Krishna is her child. And she knew definitely now and then Krishna would give her wonderful visions. But she would forget. She said, no, no, it's fine. You may be great, but I want you as a child only. So that is how, even if you are at a lower level, even if you are at a lower level, you still remain connected to the Lord. Whereas in Jnana, the thing is, there also you can remain connected by denying this Panchakosha. Now we are speaking of Jnana Yoga here. Vidyaranya says you have to disown it. Every time you feel the body is mine, you have to say, no, no, it's not mine. Every time the ego says, my ego is hurt, he said, no, it's not my ego. You have to deny it. Buddha, how could he deny it? Any amount of curses, he said, I don't accept it because that ego is not mine. It is criticizing the ego which is responsible, this Buddha-like figure. But I am separate for it. So he was disowning his own ego, his body. So any abuses, anything that impacted his ego, so that is what egolessness is. But in bhakti, what you do is you surrender your ego to the Lord. Your ego is not there; it's the Lord's ego. Means it is He who is now deciding what to do. So why should I bother? So that relaxes you. I mean, you give up ownership in an indirect way. You got it?
Very clear.
Yeah. So there's no contradiction.
Question that came in my mind. I was reading the chapter of the three gunas. How do the three gunas have a relation with the kosha?
Oh yes, that is another very long topic. Maybe we'll discuss later, because three gunas are the external counterparts of Prakriti. Prakriti, that is Mother Nature. That's why Swamiji says, realize the goal by controlling nature, internal and external. Now we are dealing with the internal nature. Kosha is your own. Of course, the food that you eat is outside. It's from the nature you are getting. Every moment we are getting prana from outside. So there is no such distinction as internal and external. They are all connected. But gunas explain, even internal nature it explains. External, the gunas is another way of classification of justifying your actions. Classifying, not justifying, classifying your actions. So they are related to, everything is related to this Panchakosha, because that is our concern, isn't it? Koshas belong to us. So Prakriti impacts us, the idea of gunas is relevant. Anything that is discussed in the Gita, we'll see, is connected to our human personality and Upanishads. These gunas are not only in the Gita. Gita elaborates it. Gunas are mentioned indirectly or in a subtle way in some Upanishads. They say the creation is made of three strands, three different strands: Rajoguna, Sattva Guna, and Tamas. Tamas, Swamiji, if you want to know what gunas are in a scientific way, then you read Swamiji's explanation. Prana also, if you want to know what prana is in a modern scientific language, then Raj Yoga you should read. There he discusses guna also. So what are the three gunas? How they affect our karma? Who is a tamasic person? Who is a rajasic person? Who is a sattvic person? And what is the relationship? Nobody is fully tamasic. Nobody is fully sattvic. Now and then he becomes a rajoguni. He wants to do this, do that, do all sorts of activity. So, but then there is a balance period where he wants to just be steady. As a result, the state is known as dhira or sthita prajna. In the second chapter, sthita prajna is a sattvic state where he gives up both rajas. Tamas is laziness and destructive nature, which Arjuna was full of tamas. So Krishna had to raise him to the level of sattva. But then he found it is difficult to stay at that level. So then he said, now you fight. So Rajoguna. So Rajoguna will enable you to connect the tamas. At least don't be tamasic. Be Rajoguni for some time. And as a result of understanding the uselessness of all our activity, then you come to Sarva Dharman Parityajya. He says follow dharma, and at the end he knows that one day he'll be disillusioned. Arjuna will come to a state where after all the victory and everything, he will say, I did everything, but still there is no peace of mind. Then he says, now you surrender everything to me. So first follow dharma, then surrender. That means go from tamas to rajas, that is following dharma. Going from rajas to sattva is this, what you call, for surrendering the whole thing. Yeah. So to perform dharma, you need rajoguna. So it is connecting to tamas. So first stage is raise a person from tamas, make him active, but activity will not be sustained for a long time. In the long run, at the end of the life at least, a person will realize that why is this rat race which I was running to achieve something? Finally, is it going to end? That is the question Nachiketa asks Yama, seeing his stupid father, going to heaven, and he was planning so many things. He was intelligent, though he was young, because he has read the Shastras from his father only. So he says, where will it lead you? You are going on the wrong path. So he wanted to know the right path, so he goes to Yama, and then he gets the Upanishad. The Upanishad tells us what is the goal of life. Okay. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Tomorrow there will be class, website as a class.
Okay. Okay, tomorrow there will be no class because we have a children's summer camp here. So there will be no class tomorrow.
Also, Rajiva won't be there. You are in Oxford next Saturday. The website says Rajiva next Saturday. You are in
Okay.
Oxford.
So we'll make the changes. Next Saturday, I'll be in a interfaith retreat with one more Swami who's coming from India. So 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th. 20th, of course, I'll be coming back for the Guru Purnima on 21st. So our next event is Guru Purnima. On the next Saturday and Sunday also, there will be no regular class.
Sunday
Yeah.
half 3 is the next class. Sunday half 3 is a retreat class.
Yeah. On Sunday, that is the next Sunday, the day of Guru Purnima, we have a special session which we have informed on the website also. You can register for that if you are attending in person. You don't have to register for all our classes on the website. Please note that if you are attending from home, online, you don't need to register. Registration is only for us to know how many people are coming so that we can make necessary arrangements. People just register and then don't come. So please don't do it. If you are sure, or if you are at least 80-90% sure that you will, if for some reason you don't come, it's okay. But please avoid registering if you are coming, definitely going to attend in person. So from 3 o'clock, there will be 2 speeches on Guru Purnima, and also one speech by Atma Priyanji, who is starting a online Gita class for 1 year. It will be conducted by our university in Belur Math. So it will be a very certificate course. So first 9 chapters in 1 year, rest of it in the next year. So all the details we had sent, it will be there. It is there on the website. So you please visit our website and click on the registration link. We'll try to update it. We'll just check. But you don't have to register right now and pay the fees because they have updated it recently. So we are updating it. So do it after Guru, even if before Guru Purnima or after Guru Purnima you can do.